Hello, internets, and welcome to Friday Frights here at Penny for a Tale. I'm Staffan, and these wonderful people around me are the investigators who are traveling through the Northumbrian countryside on a mid-morning in November 1926. Why don't we, since it's been a couple of weeks, just quickly go around and introduce ourselves, introduce your characters, and we'll catch up with the story from there. No particular order, so let's start with Drake.
You always go no particular order and start with me. I absolutely love it. I'm Drake Finney. You can, first time back at the table in a long, long time. Actually, second time back at the table. But first time with the 3-point arc. And I'll be playing Robert Graham. And have had a great time so far. Haven't lost my mind. But I have a feeling tonight the other shoe will fall. And we'll see me babbling in a corner somewhere.
Well, that I would be. I'm not going to completely spoil the plot, but it is a Call of Cthulhu game. And welcome to Jay. Hope you've managed to join the insanity.
Yes, thank you. My name is Jay. This is my first time here. Thank you for inviting me. Sorry I missed earlier. Life kind of gets in the way sometimes, but I'm going to be playing James Gilsby. I believe I pronounced that correctly. He's that Englishman from the antique dealer that seems to try not to make some ruffles.
That sounds like a plan. We'll see how well it succeeds. After all, the good colonel who you're visiting, turning 60, could well be said to be an antique at this point. And speaking of things that definitely aren't antiques, Sarah, played by Shae.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm getting used to turning this on and off. Hello, everyone. I'm Shae, and I am playing Sarah Hamilton, James's fiance in this Call of Cthulhu, and my character is losing her mind.
Yes, ever so slowly. And speaking of losing their mind, or quite possibly that of the entire group, Matt.
Hey, Matt. I'm doing RPG stuff and charity things on Twitch. And I'm playing Jane Graham, and I was a nurse in the war, and now I'm here with my husband Robert. Meet some more of his rather large family. Oh yeah, and slowly losing it. I'm getting there.
Not my fault for losing it. Not my fault.
By no means least, good to see you back, Rindis.
Hi guys, good to be back. I'm Rindis of Party White Games. I will be playing the ever grumpy, surly, and sarcastic Alexander MacKenzie, professor. He likes to smoke his pipe, he likes to go insane, and he likes to move the plot forward by wandering off alone.
And I believe is carrying rather a wonderful timepiece.
Yes, he is. Nice gift for his good friend.
I would be so happy if everyone here has ended up accidentally getting him a slightly different timepiece.
Well, we may well soon see. The group met up on a train heading out from Newcastle towards Glasgow, stopping at the little village station of Burford, where they were met by the retired Colonel Stanley Graham, known to most of the group, if not all of them, familiarly or otherwise, who was taking them up to his country estate of Thornington House by means of a horse and carriage, since the somewhat inclement and snowy weather made it unwise to use his car. On the way there, they were stopped by the local doctor, who requested that they give him a lift up to the Rose and Crown, the coaching inn just on the outskirts of the sleepy little village, which they quite happily did. Upon arrival at the Rose and Crown, it soon became evident that the publican had not, as was believed, merely fallen down the cellar stairs and knocked his head on a crate of beer, but had in fact been accosted by something rather more violent. The group investigated and fairly quickly came to the opinion that the most likely suspect was Cyril Hook, the inn's handyman and all-round busybody. Unfortunately, the publican failed to survive the incident and passed whilst under the expert care of perhaps not so much the doctor, but more so Jane and Sarah. The group continued on trying to get a sense of what had possibly happened, and whilst exploring the natural cave cellar, were rather surprised to be aided in their search by what appeared to be a ghostly form of a 1st century AD Roman legionary that eventually led them out to the coal cellar, where they discovered a coal shovel with large bloodstains on it. At this point, the police was called. Cyril had disappeared out into the countryside, but when the police arrived, they felt that he would appear fairly shortly, not being the greatest survivalist. And the group has regathered and is once again in the horse and wagon, heading up the country lane, past the quaint little village church, up to the fine manor house that is Thornington Hall. And if I can get this worked out. Pardon the lack of music temporarily. If you were to look in your journal, you will indeed find an image of said country house. You pull up through a set of stately gardens that have quite noticeably been dug up in multiple locations. There's evidences of large bushes having been uprooted and just rudely left on their side, with large some quite deep holes left underneath them, just randomly potted about this otherwise rather pristine and manicured front garden. As you come up to the circle in front of the manor house, you see standing on the doorstep the inestimable Mrs. Reynolds, the housekeeper that you're all aware of in reality runs this place, no matter what the good colonel may pretend. And that's where we'll open the scene as you're dismounting from the carriage.
I will try not to
Sarah.
look at Miss Reynolds as much as I can.
James turns over to Sarah. Sarah, dear, this is your uncle's estate.
It is.
Yeah, and
Impressive. Very interesting.
He is an accomplished man.
I would say he definitely is. This is going to be a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend. Yes, yes. As he gets a little bit more nervous looking up on this, and
I just like lean over and just kind of like whisper softly. And just try to stay on Miss Reynolds' good side, and I think you'll be fine.
I'll do my best. Yes, yes.
So the garden looks like it. So the garden looks like it's taken care of, but torn up, or it just looks like it's torn up.
It looks like it's generally taken care of, but it's sort of randomly in places just being dug up.
Yeah,
like
I
someone's
will.
looking for something.
The damn fool is hoping to find ancient Roman architecture from what we discussed.
What we discussed. What about what we saw? No doubt about what we
Well,
saw.
Yes, the specter is quite real, if you are to believe such a thing, and I do in fact believe, having been the one to see it and find it. The good Reverend.
He's been
When they start
speechless
talking
since he
about
saw
a
it.
specter,
Yeah. Because who saw the specter? That was.
We all saw it.
everybody but
James.
James.
Everybody James.
All right.
But when they
Okay, that's great.
when they start talking about a specter, I just casually slip a hand into James's arm and start walking away from them.
Which, in doing so, brings you that much closer to the main stairs where Mrs. Reynolds has moved forwards to greet the good colonel. So, sir, you're running late. The train wasn't too delayed, I hope? The colonel rather sheepishly responds, "Well, the train was quite on time. We just got detoured a little bit. Had to stop off at the Rose and Crown, some medical emergency thing. But it's all taken care of. No need to concern yourself. And it doesn't take a lot to see the indignant huff that Mrs. Reynolds produces as soon as she hears the words Rose and Crown. Oh, that den of drunkenness and indignity. iniquity. I don't know what could possibly have come into you, Colonel. But nevertheless, just know that you may be late, but that doesn't change. The dinner is still on for 6 on the dot. Now, if you'll excuse me, they say that there's a force 3 wind coming in from the northwest, and it's going to bring snow, so I need to get back inside to the fires. Oh, and so she turns and starts heading back into the house, and almost as an afterthought, turns back and says, "Oh, and there's tea laid out in the small dining room. It may still be warm." And then heads in through the doors,
It's pleasant.
leaving the colonel somewhat crestfallen, yet accepting of the fact that he may be the owner of the estate, but certainly not the proprietor.
I'm getting what was her, Ventina Beakley, the housekeeper from DuckTales. That's the vibe I'm getting.
She's a firebrand as ever, right, Uncle?
Oh, indeed. Almost embarrassingly so, I might say. But to be honest, my dear, I really don't know what I would do without her. After all, she and he pats his belly, keeps me around and well fed and taken care of. Forget my own baths next, if I was to believe her.
And try not to worry too much about it. It couldn't be helped earlier.
Oh, indeed not. Yes, just as a piece of flavor, those of you who are used to spending time up here at Thornington House, you're well aware of Mrs. Reynolds. She doesn't approve of alcohol, tobacco, tardiness, good food going to waste, modern girls, politics, unchaperoned couples, and of course people who don't dress for dinner. But that's by no means exhaustive.
She must be so happy to see us.
There was a reason I wasn't looking at her.
And that's just the first page of her description.
The professor's definitely keeping his flask hidden.
Let's have some lukewarm. Well, hopefully it's still warm. Some warmish tea.
There is indeed tea and cucumber sandwiches cut up without the edges on fine bone china, laid out in the smaller of the two dining rooms. Small in this instance, merely being that it probably holds 10 as opposed to 20. Meanwhile, the co say, "Oh, yeah, it's best to make sure we at least recover a bit with a good cup of tea. Settles the nerves. Absolutely, yes," he says, and looks around and goes in reaches in underneath the dining room table and brings out a bottle of brandy that he passes around. Fortunately, her back is getting a bit weak these days. She doesn't quite reach to dust underneath. And It's a very pleasant, although, as it were, slightly cooled off tea, but it's properly done. Milk poured first and all that. After which, you are basically left to your own devices for a little bit to drag your suitcases up to your various rooms. James has been placed pretty much as far away from Sarah's normally room as Mrs. Reynolds has been capable of placing him. Robert and Jane do get to share a room. And of course, Alexander has his suite as ever. And the good preacher makes his apologies and says that, yes, unfortunately, the events have taken just that little bit of a toll. I'll see you all at dinner, of course, but if you'll excuse me, and heads off to his rather small but comfortable room to have a bit of a rest. And
James will.
Yep.
So I was going to say, James will take Sarah's luggage and his self's luggage up and drop Sarah off at her room, and realizing where his room is, will eventually take his stuff back to his room. Doing the gentlemanly, like, waving down the hallway.
Sarah looks back and forth down both hallways, gives him a scandalous kiss on the cheek before entering her room.
Darling, a good impression, you know. Well, there'll be time for that later, but sometime.
Nobody's watching.
I want to make a good impression, and there's eyes everywhere, but thank you, dear. Do you need any help settling in?
I'll be fine, darling. Don't
Yes.
worry, it won't happen again.
He'll put the luggage in at the front of the door. And, well, dinner. I did bring my dress, my shirts, I think. Oh yes. Oh, dinner was. How long until dinner? A few hours.
Probably at this point about 5 hours or so. It's probably about 1 in the afternoon.
Okay. Do you think it would be all right if I looked around in the manor?
I don't see why not. Do you like company?
Oh, I would love it. If you're not busy, that would be wonderful. Let me put my stuff away. I'll be right back. Thank you.
Of course.
Goes and puts his stuff away, and about 15, 20 minutes later, after he freshens up, we'll come back out.
Very well, sir.
I'll take mine and Robert's stuff upstairs, because yeah. So I'll take that upstairs, and I'll notice you two in the hallway, but I don't judge. I'm like, good for them. I'll start getting everything packed in, putting dressers and whatnot.
It absolutely takes a little while to put away 3 or 4 days worth of regular clothing, taking the outside air clothing, formal clothing for dinner, etc. Not a problem. Which means we can turn the scene over to the good professor.
The professor probably hasn't settled into his room yet. The offer of tea had piqued his interest, so he would be down there And as soon as the missus had wandered off, he would have unscrewed his flask and put a healthy dose of his liquor into it and just kind of sit and enjoy the tea. Probably look for the colonel.
Who's also sitting down, enjoying his, as it were, his own flask. So, very, very glad you could make it up, Alexander. Really good to see you got. I will admit, I'm quite excited to show off my latest find. It's quite surprising.
Is it? I'm very curious to see what you have discovered here. The news of you tearing up your grounds has stirred quite a bit of interest from your kin.
Well, yes, I mean, I did have to unfortunately sacrifice one of the birthday celebration bushes, but it's all in the name of science.
Indeed. Is this nonsense of Romans what you've been looking at? Everybody seems to think that you're going to find some old fortress here.
Well, I certainly believe that there must be one here somewhere, especially given my latest find. Oh, good. Here is the rest of the group. Come. Let us adjourn to the trophy room, and I can show you all the wondrous things that I have discovered. And he leads you down the long marble entryway that leads up to the twin staircases to the floor above, and behind the staircase is the double glassed indoors leading into what used to be the trophy room. Whilst the walls still hold any number of heads of various big hunt animals. There's an antelope, there's a rhino, there's also a number of firearms and a particularly vicious-looking sword, well, scimitar-like, with an inscription in Arabic. And just for verisimilitude, why don't we have the group make history rolls?
Ooh, let's see.
Green, right? Or blue?
Green.
Green. Fantastic.
Boom, the one thing I'm good at.
How am I not surprised? Both James, but of course the noble Professor MacKenzie, who after all specializes in these things, knows that the sword is a what's known as a cascara. It's a Sudanese blade, particularly of a particularly vicious bent. There's a display case with a revolver, a couple of shotguns. There's a couple of rifles that still look serviceable hanging up on the wall, as well as a number of purely display items. However, you're used to the trophy room being a sort of fairly standard Victorian study library with large leather fully stuffed, full-backed armchairs, a few tables, reading tables, that sort of thing. None of the chairs seem to be in existence. The large display window leading out to the back gardens has been covered with chalkboards that are have been rolled up in front of them with that are full with what appears to be excavation diagrams and various notes. There are about half a dozen tables just scattered around the room with any number of small to medium-sized obvious archaeological artifacts, coins, remains of tools, all sorts of stuff like that. Most noticeably, in the middle of the room, however, is a large, appears to be a dining room table that's been moved in here, upon which lies a more or less complete skeleton, along with what appears to be a gravestone fragment. The skeleton is dressed in the remains of what appears to be, well, given the apparition that most of you saw, Roman armor.
I'll kind of elbow Robert. Does it look like they took the skeleton and the armor out at the same time, or they put the armor back over the skeleton for display?
Anybody who's sort of looking around could make archaeology rolls would be appropriate, history rolls would be appropriate, education rolls would sort of be a backup.
I only had a 1, but I still really wanted to try.
Oh, it's always worth trying. You never know. You never know.
It's great to see you're almost on the complete opposite side, too. So close.
Oh, yeah. Yes, Jane goes, well, it's all dirty.
This isn't as nice as the museums.
She goes, it's all Greek to me.
Technically, it's Latin.
Robert looks over the collection and goes, well, yes, there's certainly links between the items and particularly the laid out skeleton and the notes up on the blackboard as far as what seems to have been discovered where and so forth. So given, if the notes are to be believed, all of this was discovered on the property of Thornington House, particularly out towards the area of the front gate and the village road. Let's see. Alexander is looking at it more from a historical perspective, and it also he's aware of the or there having been a second wall that was built north of Hadrian's Wall called Antonius's Wall, that was briefly occupied before the Romans pulled back from it, back to behind Hadrian's, towards the end of the imperial settlements up here. And this all seems to be coincidental with that era. And finally, James, the archaeologist, sort of looks around and goes, "Well, yes, I mean that's definitely Antonian era, so 2080-ish coinage, the wear and tear on the metal pieces of the armor. It's the inscription on the gravestone. They all seem consistent with a Roman occupation / burial. Those of you who have it, or even those who just feel like rolling, can give rolling against your Latin a go, looking at the headstone. I believe. Oh, Robert.
I don't think I. Oh, language other, right? That.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
So, Robert, you realize that it takes you a second, since you're used to dealing in current, as it were, ecclesiastical Latin, and you realize that obviously this headstone is written in first century AD Latin, so it's a little bit ye olde Latine mangled. But if you look at your journal, you'll find a headstone in there with the information that you can glean. Meanwhile, Colonel Graham is standing just back a little bit from the group of you as a little bit like the proud parent showing off the work of his school children's drawings on the fridge. Oh yes, I'm sure you can see this remarkable find. Really, I'm pretty sure that it substantiates my my research that there must have been a Roman fort here somewhere nearby. Quite possibly down by the church, but of course that blasted vicar won't let me go near with as much as a teaspoon.
Interesting.
I'm sorry. So, Is this though? Yeah, I'll kind of just aside to Robert. Is
Mhm.
is this archaeology or is this grave robbing?
Depends on if you have a license or not.
Well, and if it's on his property, Uncle, where did you find this headstone?
Oh, it was. And he looks back up at the chalkboards. Um, just underneath the rose bushes, down by down towards the road, don't you know?
But you found it on
Um,
this property.
Oh yes, 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 yes.
all right. I don't know if that
Were
makes
Centaurians,
it. Go ahead.
were Centaurians normally buried with headstones? Dialect's a bit old, I can't really make it out.
Um,
Well-to-do ones would have been, but that's where I'm
And
wondering now exactly what we're built on. Maybe not a fortress, but a graveyard?
mm,
There would
it-
probably be more graves if there was a graveyard, but I bet there's an
uh,
archaeological society that would be very interested in this find. This looks well preserved. I know there's quite a few shops that I know of.
just because it was on your property, not to be disrespectful, it doesn't quite mean it's yours. It was probably, and then I point at the skeleton.
Well, don't imagine he has much use for it now.
Of course, we don't have the Reverend here right now. He'd understand.
Well,
I was going to say,
in
thanks,
many-
Professor, for getting me out of trouble.
If we were going to place land in the hands of every person who's ever lived, then none of us would actually have any land to live on.
Indeed, I'm sure we can't take it up with the Roman Senate on whether or not we should give this back to the Centurion.
Jane's just doing all the dead people math. How many dead people would it take for everything to be a yeah? Okay, fair enough. Eventually, everything will be a cemetery.
It's surprising that it's nearly 2 millennia and nobody's found this.
Fair enough. I want to take a look at that. I know I don't know a lot about the town, but I'm still going to try and see what I can figure out from looking at his map on the chalkboard. See if I can kind of figure out where we've been around there and see if I recognize anything.
certainly. You look at the sketches on the chalkboards, and it does seem like the excavations are, or the successful excavations, I should say, for they seem to have been randomly peppered pretty much around the entire set of gardens around the house. Were down in the southeast corner, which is the corner of the estate gardens that that border onto the small churchyard, and beyond that the vicarage, and the mud road, as it were, that leads back down the way you came, down to the Rose and Crown, which is about a couple of miles away.
So no, southeast to the vicarage is where it's all right. Cool.
Looking over the items that he has, from an archaeology
That word.
that word basis, what is the financial worth of these items coming from a dealer?
From a dealer perspective, probably not a whole lot.
Okay.
Roman coinage, and sort of small items you can pretty much find anywhere you put a shovel in the ground in most of England. The armor and weaponry of the centurion probably have some value, but there the issue more is that they're so unique that it's not like there's an immediate market for them. You're aware of a few collectors that may well be interested if they were aware of them, but you would imagine that you're maybe talking, well, 1920s currency, probably the order of 50 to 100 pounds, something like that. I mean, still a fair chunk of cash. Price of a reasonable motor car kind of thing, but not an insurmountable amount. And so as you're sort of wandering around and looking at these things a bit more, and Robert reads off, I assume, the rough translation of the gravestone.
Yeah, the inscription on the headstone reads... Actually, does everyone have access to it, or you want me to actually read it?
I was going to say, if you wouldn't mind reading it just for the stream.
I'll give it a shot in case. To the spirit of Lucius Pontus Atellus, 3rd centurion of the Legio, the 6th Viticus, blessed by Mithras, and below all that is a carving of a sword with a ray of light coming from it.
And I think let's do history rolls. And if people fail those, they can roll education. Ooh.
Oh no! Here I was giving Jane shit. Clearly this is Chinese, not Roman.
Speaking of that sort of plurality of divine beings between the Greek and the Roman divinities, Alexander gets a little bit confused temporarily between the two and tries to place Mithras in the Greek and fails.
Miserably.
Sarah is aware that Mithras is or was a deity that was basically competing with Christianity in the late Roman era. It was a sun cult, particularly worshipped in the legions.
Mithras was one of the older gods that was competing with Christianity, mostly among the legions. Interestingly enough, they were born of a virgin on the solstice.
Oh, that's right. Hmm.
I'm just thinking for a centurion being here. Yeah, they're buried with others, so how many more haven't been unearthed yet?
And also, given how given that Sarah got a hard success on that, she also recalls that Mithras is often depicted as slaying a bull and was known for building underground temples.
You'd be a bit hard pressed to find them without digging. Mithras is often depicted as a slayer of bulls and builds temples underground, not atop. I don't suppose there's
So it might not be
anything
a
in the
graveyard, it
basement.
might be a temple.
Hmm.
Well, I certainly hope that there is a temple out there somewhere. Obviously, not on my grounds, on the basis that I would have found it if it was. So, somewhere round about the church would just seem to make sense. Dash. Okay.
Most civilizations do place buildings on top of other structures. It's a more common thing that when new civilizations come in, they just plop a new building right on top of another one. It could be very interesting. Hmm. Hmm.
That on top of a deity with the same or circumstantial origins.
It happens quite often. The one religion comes in and kicks another one out and puts their temple right on top of theirs and just claims it for themselves. Most of Christianity does that quite a bit with the pagans. So all the holidays and stuff.
So you think their temple on top of it, or maybe a church, vicarage?
Possibly.
It would have made sense that the centurion would have not been exactly in the area of the church. Uncle, what have you stumbled into?
Oh, the
I
find of the century, my boy. The find of the century.
Dear Colonel, you say that the reverend or the priest at the church is not allowing you to look around?
No, and he's being most obstreperous about the whole thing. The man even went so far as to denounce me in last weekend's sermon, don't you know?
Oh.
He denounced you?
Yes,
For what? For what?
for breaking down God's pastures with my irrational investigations.
Wait, Uncle, I thought you'd only done this on your land.
Oh yeah,
Where else have you done this?
just on my land. I mean, I wanted to go and look at the churchyard, obviously, but the man just won't let me close with a teaspoon.
Have you thought about maybe not a tithe, making a donation?
God, Jane, you know as well as I that the church is the family church. It practically is the family. Well, as long as the family has been here, which I will admit, of course, hasn't been that long. I mean, yes, the estate was the Drakes' up until the Reformation, but they lost it fair and square.
Hmm.
This case sounds a
Darlene.
bit more like he doesn't. Yes?
Oh, I'm sorry. Please continue. My mistake. Please continue. I have an idea, but share with me what's yours.
That kind of behavior just makes me think that the priest does not wish anything to be exhumed from the earth.
Well, to be brutally honest, he is a little bit of a spineless wimp when all is said and done. Good with grieving widows and all that, but no backbone.
Darling, I have an idea. I don't know if it's going to be well received, but we are planning a wedding, and we haven't picked a church yet. We could see if maybe we could go to the church and look around, and of course, everyone would come with us to see if it's a proper place for to say our vows. It would give an opportunity for everyone to take a look, and we could just see what type of atmosphere it would be for a wedding.
This is brilliant.
That sounds like an
This is so
adventurous
beautiful.
idea.
If everyone's jolly good show for it. Killing two birds with
Show
one
Would be a
stone,
way to
so
get
to
us
speak.
in.
It's just an idea. But of course, I would need some. It would be up to you, Colonel, of your approval if such thing would be acceptable.
Do we have your blessing?
Oh, my dear, you know I could never say no to you. Well, dash it, the last time I tried, you went ahead and just channeled your mother and did it anyhow, so... Are you quite sure you'll realize what you're letting yourself in for, young man?
I have an idea, yes, but she's worth it.
Well,
I will make a fine husband to her. I give you my word.
I'm just gonna tap Randis or Alexander, make the motion for his flask real quick. You know.
He'll definitely pass it over.
Well,
But I believe that would be for some other day because it's obviously nighttime. So,
We do have a
yes,
dinner tonight, that's true.
yes.
This
Now, I don't
sounds
think
like
it's
quite the
something we.
adventure.
Yes. James is just grinning, very happy, excited, and just kind of lays low.
You just want that
Well,
shared
it
room.
is-
That's all you
yeah,
want.
it's only about, at this point, about 2:30 in the afternoon, so there's a couple of hours or so before you would need to start dressing for dinner.
Oh, maybe there is
I
time.
say we go now.
Are we up for it?
I'm sure Jane's expertise would be well in hand too, as she handled all of our affairs and knew what was required.
I'm sure Mrs. will mind as long as we're on time.
Yes, we wouldn't want
Oh,
to miss
yeah.
dinner, but no time like the present to move.
And so the group regathers itself. The Colonel Graham excuses himself and says that, well, perhaps it's best that I stay behind here and, well, yes, do a little bit more paperwork. Wouldn't want to predispose the Reverend Atwood against you in any way.
Fair enough.
So you gather yourselves together and meander on down the driveway, all quarter mile of it or so, down to the front gates. From there it is but a few hundred yards down the road, past the rough excavations, to St. Cuthbert's in the Wolds. And if you look at your handouts, there is an approximate picture of what St. Cuthbert's looks like. It's a blocky grey stone church with a square tower. It was originally built by the Normans, so back in the 7th century, but then had a chapel added on by the local Dade family in the early 17th century. There's a steep-roofed Victorian lich gates that marks the entrance to the churchyard, the path winding through it up to the chapel, going past headstones that are just standing at any old angles and are just completely eroded by age. Slightly behind there is a cheery mock Tudor cottage, which is the vicarage. A short garden path leading from the churchyard to it, with nothing more venerable than a garden gnome.
James
as you
definitely
gather-
walking with. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Jay.
I was going to say James is definitely walking arm in arm with Sarah and is a little bit bouncier in his step since the blessing has been given and he can move on to bliss.
Robert will be arm in arm with Jane right behind them, just shaking his head, going, "You don't know what's happening. You don't know what's happening."
Alexander's just going to take another drink of his flask and just, it's none of his business because he's not part of the family.
Fair. Well, you make your way over to the church, the double doors of which stand slightly open to let the brisk November air in. That's on the porch on the south wall of the long nave. You've got the tower to the left, the chancel leading off to the right. The chapel is diagonally opposite to the porch, extending out from the north wall. There's your traditional 2 rows of pews that run the length of the nave. The altar shares the chancel with a small pulpit, and behind it all is a stained glass window depicting St. Cuthbert holding the crowned head of St. Oswald the Martyr. Coming out of the sacristy in a rather scuffed set of tweeds is what the locals of you know as the Reverend Atwood. He's been the Reverend for about the last 4 or 5 years. Um, he's quite short, rotund, soft spoken. Um, and looks up and goes, "Oh, my dear, yes, visitors. Well, welcome to St. Cuthbert's. Oh, Mrs. Graham, Mr. Graham. Good to see you. Good to see the leg is still holding up. And of course, yes, Miss Hamilton. Um, it's
Hello,
been
Reverend
it's
Atwood.
been far too long since you've been able to grace us, I'm sure, but it's always a pleasure to see you. Well,
You as well.
to what do I owe this honor?
Actually, I'd like to introduce my fiance. This is James.
Reverend, it's nice to meet you. It's an honor.
Oh well. This is delightful news. Delightful news indeed. Um, so glad to see that somebody's finally able to um, steer the wild wind of the family in a respectable direction, as it were.
Wow.
There's an inward eye roll.
Your charms are wonderful, Reverend. Thank you for such kind words. It's very clear James is trying to butter the Reverend up and charm him in this process of. Yes, we are.
Well, speaking of this, I would say this seems like an excellent time to roll a social roll. So anyone of charm, fast talk, persuade, or intimidate.
Wow.
I thought I had
I
that
would
one.
almost suggest that that's maybe worth a point of luck from Jane.
I'll do it. I'll do a point of luck. Uh, how do I take my point of luck away?
Just manually reduce the number.
No, that's magic. Luck. There we are. How many points?
You just need the one,
All right. Cool. Reduced.
unless you
And
want to
then
spend 31 to get a hard success. But I don't know that that's really called for.
just if it's just one, yeah, that works.
And the Reverend Atwood continues in a perhaps slightly less than helpful tone about Sarah's shenanigans, particularly earlier on in her youth. Drawing
You were
out the
such a sweet young
attentions of
girl.
that time when she decided to take after her mother and go out shooting on the moors and accidentally shot the gamekeeper and other such pieces of family trivia.
She still has no regrets
When
about that.
when Jane um, manages to step in and just subtly steer the conversation back into more current matters.
When she does, Sarah just Like I just look at Jane and just mouth, "Thank you."
All math bath takes after your mother.
And
Well,
no, go ahead.
we were actually decided we'd start looking at places that we might be wed at.
Well,
Is there anything?
I do hope that you will at least consider St. Cuthbert's, even though it would mean having to have that miscreant, your uncle, in the building, but needs must.
Oh, he's not as bad once you get to know him. But is there any bit of history or information you can give us about St. Cuthbert's?
Well, I mean, as you know, the building was originally built, well, at least before 672, when it appears in the Doomsday Book. Of course, greatly then expanded by the Drakes, until they perhaps unwisely chose the wrong side in the Civil War, but fortunes of politics and all that. Fortunately, the Grahams saw fit to continue the patronage of the church, as they were granted the lands and the estates following the Drakes' demise. And he even takes you over and shows you, just because of the stained glass window and the beauty of it, the chapel, which has a plaque dedicated to my beautiful wife and daughter, Sir Richard Dade, 1603. It has a beautiful stained glass window of the Madonna and the Child. And on the floor is a mosaic of Christ with rays of sunlight coming from his head. And also, in the floor is quite clearly the top stone of a burial vault of some kind, that sort of traditional 7 by 3 foot slab.
How similar is the rays coming from Christ's head to the rays coming from the sword?
Eerily.
And the top of the headstone, is it in any relation to what we found? Or what Uncle found, I should say.
Go ahead and make an archaeology roll.
Oh, not a good category. Oh, come on, be hot. Come on, wake up, little computer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well.
There it goes.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah. We'll take the first one. Difficult to say. And it's you. You can see your uncle's theory about if there really is a fort underground here, then the temple being somewhere underneath the church or the church grounds would make sense, because it's that little the church sits on a slightly raised area of ground, so that may well be. But that's about all you can tell.
Well, James and Alexander having more experience in it, I'm going to kind of motion to the Christ head and go, looks familiar, guys?
Yes. James is probably a little bit more attentive to the Reverend, but kind of looks over at Alexander and, check it out while James and Sarah are speaking with the Reverend and trying to distract them over on this area while they're doing their thing in this area.
A perfect man of guile, Alexander is going to subtly walk his way over and start looking it over. Definitely light his pipe in the church while he's looking it over.
Oh, this is a 20s. It's cool.
Yeah, no, nobody's gonna mind.
True, yeah.
Gotta have some tobacco with your steak in the 20s.
Absolutely. Yes, it's 17th century, early 17th century. It's a little bit of an odd representation, but it does have an eerie similarity of form to the sun rays coming out of the sword that was on the gravestone of the centurion. Go ahead and... Actually, Alexander, why don't you go ahead and roll an education roll? Okay.
All right, well, there we go.
Obviously, not what you're looking for here is obviously just not quite in your field. I'm trying to think if James, go ahead and give me an archaeology.
In the meantime, while they're kind of looking at it, he'll kind of walk past it at different times and be like, it's get a good idea of like, okay, yep.
And barely making the roll by the skin of the dice. It does strike you that there's something odd about the orientation of the Christ. The Christ inlay on the floor and the sun rays. At least from an archaeological perspective, it's this figure is essentially head north, but you would expect it to be head east. But it might just be that's just because of the overall layout of the church itself, and it may look odd if the mosaic was crosswise, as it were. But if that was the case, maybe they could have put it up more by the altar in the chapel rather than leading up to the gravestone. But yeah, there's something with that just sits uneasy. And I think with that little mystery is a good point for us to take, say, a 10-minute biological break and ponder. And we'll see everybody back at about 10 past the hour. And we're back. Once we've managed to gather everybody, we will give and as everybody is wandering around and admiring the decor and wonder that is St. Cuthbert's Church, and particularly the Drake Chapel, there is a sudden loud whelp from Robert out in the pews, where unfortunately it seems that his peg leg has gotten caught underneath one of the pew legs, and he's twisted and fallen. I'm sure Jane and the others will rush out to assist. He's basically okay, but a little bit shook up, and says that he will slowly make his way back to the manor house and rest his leg up a bit, his old war wound acting up. But he hopes to be able to see you all for dinner. Drake has unfortunately had to step away with a family emergency, but we do hope to see him back next week. But is what's next up for the them there were four?
The Reverend is still with us, kind of showing us around.
Yes.
Okay.
As he's showing us, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. Yep.
I was just gonna ask, like, since he's showing us around, would any of us be able to make a spot hidden?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know what happened. I started so great tonight.
Wow.
I think this figure on the cross here is supposed to represent Christ.
I feel the need to use 9 luck points to make that a success.
Well, in this case, I'm going to say don't worry about it.
Okay. All right.
But yes, he would have.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But no, there's nothing that seems to be other than James's viewpoint that the mosaic of Christ is oddly aligned.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really anything particularly hidden or unusual about the church itself or the chapel.
In the conversation that Sarah and James is having with the Reverend, will probably Reverend, is there some paperwork or some materials that you have maybe that we could that we need to look at or review before we consider this place as a marriage?
That's the question. Is there? Um, why don't you go ahead and make a social roll? So, charm, fast talk, intimidate, persuade.
Oh, it sounds like charm is going to be my best social for this one. So let's see if this is going to work.
Oh, rolling
Hey.
an 03. Okay, extreme success.
Knowing that there's some documentation for marriage papers, and maybe we have to fill out a whole bunch of forms, getting him back to the office to collect all those forms, giving us some time to look around and discuss and I need some time to discuss with my wonderful fiance of is she what she's looking for, to make sure that this is the right place, if you don't mind.
Well, yes, there are, of course, any number of papers that His Majesty the King's Church would require in such a circumstance. Um, but if perhaps you have the time, you could wait here whilst I go and see what I can rustle up.
We do have dinner a little bit later, but I think we can wait. If it won't take, to take as long time, we would like to still kind of look around and see. Take as long as you need. We'll be right here waiting for you.
It shouldn't be a problem.
Ve- Very good. And he'll um, waddle on out and back out through the sacristy, and you hear the door on the far end close. So he's probably heading off to the vicarage.
I turn over to the professor. Professor, what do you make of the crown? Shouldn't the beaming light of the Christ, shouldn't it be facing east, not north? Is this what is your opinion on this?
Hmm. Well, I seem to have been a bit daft of late since we entered this building, but it does seem to be indicating something. If we were able to surmise through old mystery novels or some Holmesian deduction, it might be pointing us in a direction we may want to look.
In my archaeological papers and discoveries, would I have knowledge that some places might have an Indiana Jones um, pressure points and moving the secret tunnels and things of that nature? Would the like James the character have that knowledge, or
Well, we are talking it's late enough in the 20s that we're well into the realm of the great explorers, particularly the Egyptologists.
Mhm.
So all the fun and shenanigans of Egyptian burial chambers have been fairly well described, if not commented upon in the popular press. We're not quite at the point of pulp novels yet, but it's out there.
Okay. Professor, could this be some moving pots or something, or a directional indication of looking for something? Entrance?
Hmm. I do believe it could be, considering that specters and ghosts are within the realm of possibility now. It's not beyond reason to assume we could check.
Hmm. Jane, dear, what is your thoughts? Miss Jane, excuse me.
Hmm. Um, like, like Alexander said, the ghosts are in the realm of possibility now. So,
The professor is going
I
to
don't.
start following that lead, just since it is pointing that way, he's going to kind of Da Vinci code his way towards it, just like, follow, follow. James had a great point, so why not check it and see if it leads anywhere?
Very well. I think those sort of actively engaged in wrapping their minds about that can start off making a locksmithing roll.
All right, I actually have that one.
I think the professor's just going to go home or go back to the manor and just go to sleep.
Wow.
The professor is having a horrible realization.
He had too much of his flask.
Yes.
Well, that's actually the problem. He hasn't. It seems that the nefarious Mrs. Reynolds, in a unguarded moment, has managed to swap out the professor's flask with one of tea.
Oh, that delightful woman. How dare she? James, it would appear that I'm not drunk enough to solve this mystery. I'm playing at my disadvantage.
I'm so sorry.
However, that having been said, everybody is more than welcome to make an intelligence roll at this point.
Just borrow some of that wine on the altar.
What is an intelligence roll? I'm sorry.
Just a straight characteristic. So.
Oh, there's an intelligence. Okay.
Up top. All right. That's where my education is too. I just not figured that out.
Realizing it's tea, he suddenly can start rolling well again.
And James is obviously looking at a different location.
Well, James is off following his own conspiracy theory of ancient orders of knights and so forth, and thinking about the effects of the English Civil War and all that, and possibly stories of strange occurrences down in Devon. Whereas Alexander, but more particularly Sarah, with a very distinct, these men are useless, I have to do everything myself, even think, kind of attitude, does see the, whilst the covering slab that presumably covers the burial crypt of the chapel is not mortared, merely placed, presumably supported by stonework underneath. She's of the opinion that there isn't any other locking mechanism involved to it other than just the sheer weight of 7 by 3 foot of solid stone.
Wait, how much?
There's no lock to this, and it's not mortared. One can simply move this were they strong enough.
Oh. Do we have the time?
Do we have the time?
And just
We could
move.
try.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to. Alexander, help me with this. On one
Yes.
end, and tries to lift it and move it, and
The problem you find is that there's really only about a centimeter or a quarter of an inch of vertical clearance. And whilst there's no mortaring, it is a fairly fine fit into its resting place, so you can't really get the leverage with just fingernails, as it were, to get
That's
a good lift.
I think you're going to need tools.
Before the professor commits blasphemy, is there something besides a crucifix we can use to wedge it open?
Go ahead and actually everybody can make an idea roll, which is just another name for an intelligence roll.
too bad there isn't.
So yeah, just roll intelligence, Jane.
All right, just regular intelligence.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's up top. There we are.
There we go.
Yeah.
Jane does remember seeing a set of gardening / earth handling tools. So a couple of spades, a steel spear, couple of rakes, leaned up against the back corner of the church just as you came in.
All right. Yeah. I think we can borrow some tools that might help out.
Before we proceed, we asked the Reverend to step away for a moment to gather papers while we still looked around. Do you think we have enough time, or should we save this lock for after hours?
Let's see. I guess the first thing that springs to mind here is probably a law roll to see if you know what sort of paperwork is involved, likely. Ooh.
Oh, everybody or?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
So, James, for no particular reason whatsoever, James is keenly aware of the amount of paperwork, or rather the lack thereof, that is required to be able to have a wedding officiated at this time in the United Kingdom. There's not a whole lot. And
Down,
you're
you're
muted,
muted.
Jay.
Yep, I had to do it once tonight. Anyway, as he's like, although I sent the Reverend to go get the paperwork, I believe that there isn't much, so he's probably going to be back soon. I don't think we're going to have time for this. We might need some tools and come back. I'm not sure. At least for a proper investigation.
It is probably dark down there, and we don't have any light with us. I don't think so. So you're probably right. And this
might. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So this
go ahead.
area we're at, would we have to break in to get to this area with the stone?
Well, no.
That's
the
accessible,
cobblestone,
right?
what you expect is the crypt is just on the is part of the floor of the chapel that you're standing around in. That's off.
So we would have to come back. Yeah. So we would have to come back in the chapel and hope it's unlocked. I got you. Yeah.
Is there any windows that open in the church along the walls or in a small offset obscure location? Or door?
Why don't you give me a luck roll, James?
All right. Because I'm hoping for that window that can be unlocked and left unlocked for our return. So here goes the luck roll. And
unfortunately, yeah, and oddly enough, you can't spend luck to make a luck roll, so.
Nope.
It's not very active in here, and there's only the priest, right?
Yeah.
I like what you're thinking.
Nearest Jane knows, the doors to the main doors into the church haven't been locked in living memory.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I'm not going to have to stake this place out and hide out and let you in later. Let's I guess wait for the paperwork and then do that and head out.
And
how much time till how much time till food? What's the where are we at on that?
Round about now, a couple of hours, so it's getting towards the point in time that you'd have to head back, particularly if you were going to have a bath before getting dressed, that sort of thing.
And yeah, that sounds like a really convenient excuse. So, yeah.
So yeah, it's getting on for about 4 p.m. So and it's going to start getting dark at about just before 5 probably, since it is a November's afternoon in northern England. And round about now, the good Reverend Atwood returns. Says, yes, I did. Sorry, it took a while. It's been a while since I've had the joy of looking for these particular papers. It's mostly funerals these days, you know. And he hands James the 3 or 4 pieces of paper that James already has about 3 copies of various, probably 2 of them even long in his suitcase. But yes, should we prove fortunate enough, my dear, and bows to Sarah, that you would consider us, we would of course be most honoured.
Thank you.
It is quite exciting. Hopefully we'll be able to lighten your ceremonies a bit. A little less funeral and a little more weddings.
It would indeed be a pleasure.
Well, I think we'll be off for now. Thank you so much, Reverend. I look forward to speaking with you again. Dia, Professor, Jane, shall we?
Yes, wouldn't want to be late for dinner.
Ah, yes. Thank you again.
And the Reverend stands in the doorway to the nave, looking out after you as you leave up the pathway that heads out through the Lich Gate and back out to the road, back up to the quarter-mile driveway up to Thornington House, which you all navigate with no real issue. What are your plans upon your return to Thornington House?
Get ready for dinner. Be like, I guess, get all. Are we? Yeah, we've been at this for a minute, so yeah, bath and get as presentable as possible for Reynolds, Miss Reynolds. Yeah.
Yes. As you return, there is no real sign of Colonel Graham, but you presuppose that he's also undergoing his ablutions in preparedness for getting dressed. So you head off to your various chambers.
I think James would, if there's still enough time and light, might check the shed or some of the grounds for rope, flashlights, a crowbar, or archaeological digging items to assist.
Certainly, and especially given the current interests of the good Colonel Graham, all such equipment is readily to hand and well used and in good usable order, as it were. So no problem with that. I'm not even going to worry about flashlights because they're basically common enough at this point. So James is bringing up the rear and faces the long walk down the lengthwise passage of the house. As he gets to his room and is able to draw a bath that eventually starts to run hot water. The coal fires of the place, the rather creaking plumbing, taking just a little while to warm up, but it eventually happens. And everybody's basically taking their time and enjoying the underlying excitement of a good family meal that's bound to follow in what is, after all, one of the greater country homes of the area. And with about half an hour or so to go before dinner, so about 5:30ish, darkness has started to fall outside. You can all make spot hidden rolls. Oh, Okay, Roll20, you're going to play it like that, are you? Well,
That's what I said too. It's like it does not like me today.
Do you usually fail everything in Call of Cthulhu, or is that just us?
I have seen on the official Chaosium Inc. channel the group there rolling 17 consecutive failures on
Oh,
a
God.
skill which they had at least 50% chance of making.
So it's not just us. All right, good.
It's not just
Roll20 hates me notoriously, so this isn't new for me.
This is how I feel during our Things from the Flood game. Like 20 dice and no sixes.
Yeah. Well, with that, James, since you're towards the rear of the house, but up on the upper floor, you're in the bathroom just trying to tie up your bow tie, when in the mirror you catch just a glimmer of light apparently coming through the window from outside.
Strange. I kind of backtrack it and I look out the window.
Well, it takes you a little while, but you see coming over the rear gardens from the east, what looks like a group of people with. At first, you think they're people with torches, but trudging through the snow. But as they're coming closer, so sort of within 50 yards or so, you realize to the horror that what you're actually seeing is a whole group. So maybe as many as 20 of ghostly forms of Roman legionaries overlaying their skeletal bodies as they form up a ways away from the building. And you can go ahead and make a sanity roll.
All right. Let's see. That's peculiar.
Indeed.
Clearly, something's just not right, and I would be rushing out and banging on doors and, darling.
Alexander and Jane, there is a commotion in the corridor outside, as it appears that James is in desperate need of his fiancée for some reason.
Darling, it's half an hour.
There's something outside. Something weird. Everywhere.
Seems appropriate
there's
at this
weird.
time.
There's something outside.
Is there a window nearby I can peek out of?
Your rooms have got windows, so yes, you could.
Do I see anything when I look out the window?
You look out the window, and yes, you do indeed get to make a sanity check.
I figured. That's one of the top ones, right?
Yeah, it's just under the
Studio.
characteristics.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Oh, it's just
Extreme.
more of those Roman skeletons, Roman legionary ghosts. That's not surprising in the least.
Thanks for the heads up, James. And then, yeah.
As James continues down, rattling on Alexander's door and then loudly disappearing down the hallway as almost as a kid having just performed a noisome prank.
Is this what you saw earlier?
I will take a peek out the window since I'm being asked.
Very well. You take a peek out of the window, and coming round the front garden, you do see a group of these ghostly forms just moving around to the back. So go ahead and give me a sanity check. Roman legionary ghost. Nothing really particular or oddly about that. Meanwhile, Professor MacKenzie, I assume that were you looking down the corridor going, what on earth is the matter, or?
He would have started to go that way, and then when people mentioned looking out the window, because of course I'm going to, he's gonna go take a look as well. Because why not pass up a golden opportunity to go insane with my rolls lately?
Go for it. Oh.
Yeah, okay, sure. I want a bad roll, I don't get it.
Ghostly Roman legionaries forming up in the garden.
Well, that's curious.
Group psychosis, perhaps?
That or there's something strange in the tea. He just kind of sips the tea flask again.
Are we in danger?
What do they seem to be forming up out back? What?
Yeah, they're like lining up in columns. Like, or are they just kind of marching along?
They seem to be.
Is it just battle formations or standard marching formation?
Seems to be standard marching formation right now.
They don't appear to be hostile, but we probably should alert your uncle regardless.
I'm curious, is
I
this...
can imagine that going over well. To your uncle, there's ghosts in your backyard.
Unless you've seen them and it's a common occurrence around here.
I don't know if that's more unsettling than actually seeing them.
They're not coming towards the house. We don't need arms, do we? Suddenly a flashback of the trenches of the war comes back into his brain.
I have no doubt I would fail at this, but may I make an occult roll to try and learn anything about what is happening?
Oh, absolutely. I would be a poor GM or a poor keeper if I denied anybody an occult roll at any point. I don't know that I would say spend 45 points of luck, however. Now, if you were so inclined, you could, of course, push the roll, really thinking hard about what might be going on. The risk being, of course, that if you get it wrong, you're probably going to take a sanity hit from going down the wrong path of the trouser of time, as it were.
Oh, with a 95% chance of getting it wrong, I'm gonna hold off.
That
I want to save my
feels
sanity
entirely
for the
reasonable.
magic books.
That feels entirely reasonable. So yeah, you're basically gathered around the doorway of Sarah's and Alexander's rooms, who being sort of the family, the singles rooms, as it were, the family and friends. Jane's and her husband's room are down the hallway a little bit, so you can come out and join the group.
Should someone step outside and see if this is...
Does anybody know who knew Latin?
Of
Got
the
it.
people around,
I-
yes, I believe Sarah does, and then it was the vicar and
I actually
There's-
don't have
Sarah.
a point.
If Sarah knows some Latin, I'll just ask how would you greet a legionnaire?
Can I make
Go
a
ahead.
history roll
Yeah.
for that?
Well, first of all, yeah, history roll, possibly an education roll, definitely a Latin roll. If you're rolling Latin, it's an easy enough question that I would say that that's a bonus die, so roll with the purple die rather than the green die. Yes, the good professor is definitely in his Greek books at the moment.
Yep. No.
You don't not for whatever reason, the phrasing just doesn't spring to mind.
Well,
Well, hello, salve.
there's still some. Not all the bushes have been dug up. There's still some out there. Yeah, I'll go see if I can see them outside too, just to make sure this exists and
I
we're
will
not
join her.
hallucinating. Thank you. I'm gonna just go hide and then at one of these ghosts and see if they take notice.
I'm not gonna hide and just say salve.
All right, that works too.
Okay,
Shame.
I want to know if they
so
respond.
the two ladies are from what I'm hearing, basically going to go down and make their way out through the back door and approach the parade formation. What are the two gentlemen likely to be up to at that point?
James would be. There is a sword in the den or in the throw or in the trophy room, correct?
And
Correct.
a couple of service weapons that looked functional still.
Yes.
I would grab a pistol and a sword.
Likewise. Have to defend the women folk once things inevitably go bad for them, because it's definitely not us that's causing the problems.
So it's entirely reasonable that all four of you are making your way down the staircase pretty much at the same time with the intention to split up once you get down to the lower level, to the ground level of the house. Given that, if I could have Sarah and Jane make spot hidden rolls, please. Yay, roll 20. Alexander and James. Sarah and Jane have basically come down one of the staircases, done a 180 and are heading down a corridor that leads down the side of the house at ground level to one of the rear kitchen doors. The pair of you have done the same, but done a 180 in the opposite direction to head through the glass doors into the trophy room. What the pair of you notice is that in the dim darkness of the what is now the semi-lit interior of the house, in fact, what is now the very dark interior of the house, as just at this moment, what passes for electricity suddenly dies. Yet from inside the glass doors, you can see a flickering light. Sarah and Jane briefly come to a stop as they try to reacclimatize their eyes to the what is now the dark corridor. So yeah, I think Alexander and James, what's your likely reaction to observing this light?
Take a look, a better look. Professor, do you see that?
I do. Best to
What is that?
I'm not sure. We should take a look, but with great caution.
Yes. The darkness. Those flashlights I grabbed, they're in the room. But making our way closer to the glass doors and into the room, what do we see?
Okay, well, through the glass doors, things are still fairly indistinct because it's that sort of textured, shaped glass. So not quite lavatory glass, but still not clear, not enough to give a clear vision. But there's some sort of light inside. You cautiously open the doors, which they do open outwards. You can open it just a smidgen and peer in. As you do, you both get to make a sanity roll.
Wonderful.
Hey, here we
I
go.
really like these 99s tonight.
Ooh, yes.
That's
Wow.
like your fifth one.
You at this point you both get to roll a d6. So /r space 1d6 in roll d20 in roll 20 speak. Okay.
Well, that was unexpected. I thought it was going to be in the other direction for both of
I
us.
would have imagined so. Yes. Professor MacKenzie, you take 1 point of sanity, and we'll come back to you in just a moment. James, you take 6 points of sanity loss. And
Yes.
if you've taken more than five or more points in a single loss, you now get to make an intelligence roll. This being the one roll in the game where you actually want to fail.
And I'm green dice, correct?
Green dice.
All right, let's see. What do we get this time?
Oh,
Hey!
of course, you just make it. Perfect.
Perfect.
Isn't that luck upon, to fail?
Unfortunately, you cannot apply luck to sanity events. What happens is that you have the wherewithal to mentally process the fact that as you look into the room, the skeleton is no longer on the table, but floating up by the chalkboards. You see a whitewashed image of the back of a man, graying at the temples, lean, dressed in that centurion cloak and armor, probably looking as though he's in his early 40s or so. And you can tell that he's holding the gravestone up in front of him, just intently looking at it. And you know that is the spirit of the man who once was the centurion of the Legio 6 Victrix. And if you would please press the die by the real-time bout of madness, just in the sanity section.
All right, here we go.
This throws you for such a loop that for the next 5 rounds or so, and since we're out of combat, 20 seconds, something like that, you're convinced that Professor MacKenzie is actually your father, who is the one person you've been dreading asking about marrying into a rather a small rural move out of London kind of family.
I picture suddenly like my father was telling me a story of ghost stories, and that this particular ghost story was exactly what he described. in the story, and now that I'm actually seeing it for the first time, like seeing it, that memory washes over, and I'm like just petrified of like, Father, and I'm looking at Professor McConnell. Father, what? This is. I want no, I want to. Babbling, just babbling.
James, what are you on about? Want to what?
But Father, this is. How did you know? This is. But you were right about the centurion. But no, but you're wrong. I want to marry. I don't want to leave London. But
You're having me mistaken for the priest again. I'm not your father. Apparently the professor's been an idiot tonight, so I just have to keep rolling with that.
he just James. I just see picture. I'm picturing James just babbling and just consistently babbling, and just kind of staring and babbling during this process of disbelief, belief, and the feelings of doubt that his father had kept on bringing up about marrying into this family and leaving London. But he's, yeah, over that course of time until whenever he gets pulled out, however he gets pulled out of it.
And it fairly quickly the confusion passes, but there is still that nagging fear in the back of James's mind. Please go ahead and tick the temporarily insane box in the sanity section.
Yay! Woohoo! Alrighty. We're temporarily.
Meanwhile, the two ladies in the start of the now rather dark corridor.
Are we having any second guesses about opening that door?
We want to see what's going on out there up close, right?
You're about 30 yards away from the outside door at this point. You're literally just inside the corridor from the main atrium.
I know what I saw. I shouldn't have seen it, but I know what I saw.
What are we going to do if they respond in a less than amicable manner?
I don't know. They didn't look too fast to me, marching by like that, but run away. There were a lot of them. I saw that too.
There were a lot of them. Well, let's see how this turns out.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see how this turns out.
Gingerly open the door.
Okay, so you continue on down the corridor, sort of feeling your way in the darkness. In which case, I'm going to ask that you each make a dexterity roll.
Dex, all right.
It takes a little while, mainly because Sarah manages to trip over a piece of carpet, but no actual harm befalls, other than a bit of time. And you make your way down the corridor into the back kitchen, which is slightly lit because the coal-fired Argus stove is running, presumably doing something for dinner, even though the housekeeper isn't anywhere to be found at the moment. You both reckon that she's probably off hunting candles. It's not like this is the first power outage that Thornton House has had in recent time. And you make your way to the back. Yeah, sorry.
I was just going to casually grab a frying pan. Sorry, 2-second delay.
No problem. Suitably arming yourself with traditional kitchen implements, you make your way to the back kitchen door and make your way outside into the dark garden. And making your way, you can clearly see the lined up group of about 20 or so spirits of soldiers just a little ways ahead. As you're making your way through the dark and across the garden, I would like you both to make luck rolls.
Wait, is that up top too?
Yeah, just to the left of the damage bonus build box underneath.
Oh, there it is. Sorry, on the left. Ooh.
Okay. Jane, why don't you go ahead and roll me a d3?
Okay, so that is...
I think you might even have that on the dice roll box in the sort of just on top of the investigator skills.
Oh, there it is.
Okay. So, you're making your way across the darkened garden when you suddenly come upon, rather unexpectedly, one of the excavation holes that the good colonel has left behind in his work. Sarah manages to just go stumbling flat on her face. Jane, however, is not quite so lucky and manages to twist her ankle as she falls, mainly because at this point she's wearing her heels for formal dinner dress. And he takes 2 points of hit point damage.
All right.
Jane, darling, are you all right?
Ooh, okay. So, oh, there it is. Current 7. Ooh, I think I twisted my ankle. These heels.
You're a medical professional. Is it bad? It's hard to see in the darkness.
I'm gonna go ahead and take these heels off and just, yeah.
I'm gonna do the same. Put an arm under her and help her back up.
We haven't seen anything at all out here yet, right? We haven't run around the bend yet to...
You can see the lined up parade ground,
right.
two lines of legionnaires. They're maybe about 50 yards away at this point.
All right. Well, I thought they might be not too quick, but it seems like I'm not very quick either now. So, yeah, maybe let's head back in and let me see if I can wrap this up.
All right. I'll
As
have an arm
you're
under her.
about
And...
to start moving, going to quickly cut back to the gentleman standing in the doorway, discussing whose father. Could I ask the two of you to make a listen roll, please?
Listen. Hey! Whatever I heard just snapped me out.
And Professor MacKenzie? Oh, beautiful. Basically, the two of you are snapped out of your somewhat obscure conversation by a loud, very deep roar coming from outside. And Sarah and Jane also hear this roar, but you're close enough to its source that there's no need for a listen roll. As over the hill, behind these lined up legionaries, comes a large, well, at first you take it to be a large bull or a large bear of some kind. White, with a single long horn jutting out of its front. But as you look at it and it approaches and you see it rear up on bringing up first one set of very long forelimbs, it keeps rearing up, a second set of limbs showing as it stands up to a full twice the height of a grown man. All four of its forearms or forelimbs smacking into these legionaries as they form a defensive wall against it, standing on its hind legs. I would like Jane and Sarah to make sanity checks.
Okay.
And then I would like Jane to roll a d10.
How close am... Oh, wait, no luck points on sanity. That's right.
Unfortunately not. Or fortunately not. Okay. You merely lose 2 points of sanity, Jane, for seeing this monstrosity.
All right.
We will cut quickly back.
That's the one on the... Oh, sorry, that's the one on the left, right?
The
For my
middle
sanity.
of
Middle.
the
All
middle
right, cool,
number
cool.
of your sanity numbers. So the one between the two side slashes.
Gotcha.
Meanwhile, the two gentlemen, having heard this loud bestial roar from outside, where but minutes ago the ladies headed out,
Is the skeleton still in the room?
At this point, it hasn't had a it hasn't reacted.
I'm looking. I'm concerned about my fiance, but I'm looking for a weapon. If there's a way to charge, is there like any weapon, swords, or something, or a broom or something along the walls that I might be able to grab?
Oh,
Likewise,
absolutely.
if anything's in reach.
Yeah, there's. I mean, it'll involve opening the door, running in, and grabbing something, but that's not a problem.
I'll do
like
that.
The display case unlocked or anything.
Quickly, I'll run, grab that pistol, grab that sword, and run right out and run to the outside to where my fiance is, and scared that something's happening to her.
Okay. Beware that is a dark corridor. But no, I absolutely get the reaction. And Alexander, you're basically doing the same from what you were saying?
Yes, I'm going to grab something that's within reach as well.
Okay. Could I have spot hidden rolls from James and Alexander at that point?
Yeah, okay, that checks out.
Which means I'm going to make.
Oh, goody. James, would you mind rolling another sanity roll, please?
And this is when the first character goes by. Sanity roll, correct?
Yes, please.
All right, here we go.
Oh, okay. You, as James runs in and goes to grab the Colonel's Webley service revolver and a box of ammunition that's lying down by it in a display case, he happens to glance out behind the chalkboards and sees that roaring monstrosity facing up against the legionaries.
Mm.
And then heads back out. At this then the next thing to happen is if I could have dex rolls from Alexander and James as you navigate through the 30 yards or so of darkened corridor with just the pale light of the coal-fired kitchen at its far end.
What would you want? What roll? Dexterity roll?
Okay. Dex roll, please.
That's 699s tonight.
Somebody's done something to the algorithm, that's for sure. Well, yes, the professor goes tumbling, probably over the same piece of carpet that Jane had tripped over and brought up even more earlier. However, he manages through pure fortitude to keep a hold of the shotgun that he's grabbed off the wall. Tucks and rolls with it, and he's slightly after James as the pair of you make your way out to where the slightly shaken Jane is being supported by Sarah some 40 yards away from where the pitch battle is going on. And at that point, the professor gets to make his sanity roll from finally seeing this.
You can do it.
Can't
Okay.
do it.
And the professor gets to roll his D10.
D10?
Yeah.
8.
Ooh. Well, this is
Yep.
where the curse of playing the professor in a Call of Cthulhu game occurs.
Yeah, because I have. I've also dipped below that threshold.
Ooh, double whammy possibly. So we'll start off with the intelligence roll.
All right, intelligence roll. Really? Come on.
Professor MacKenzie is totally and utterly aware of the impossibility of the scene that is playing out in front of him, and it's just cracking his mind. So I'm going to ask you, Rindis, if you would mind, please press both the real time and the summary dice.
Real time and summary. Awesome! Yep.
Yep. So as the scene is roughly this. Sarah is helping Jane come out of this hole that they both more or less fell into. Jane slightly favoring her left leg, having removed her high heels and now standing in the wet mud in just her stocking bare feet. Jane is gibbering a little bit, but keeping it together. Just as James reaches the pair of them, and just as James is reaching out a hand towards his fiancée to help her with the burden of Jane and make sure that he's all right, and I actually, there's a question, Jay. Is James more likely to start off by shooting towards the monstrosity, or would it be more likely to, first instinct be to help get Sarah away from there?
It would be get Sarah away from there, because his focus would, as I said earlier, he heard a noise outside, thinking and knowing that his fiance is out there, he's going to go protect.
Very well. Perfect. And so what James does is he runs forward and does that 180 turn to sort of form the other half of the one either side carrying Jane to try to get them moving back away from the ghosts and the big white monstrosity. As Professor MacKenzie comes running out of the kitchen door, having recovered himself from his pratfall, and he stops and he looks and he starts to giggle because what he's seeing just is impossible, and the giggle builds and just turns into a hysterical laughter as he falls down upon his knees and then down on the ground, just rolling, consumed with laughter. And I think that's a good point at which to end tonight. That was some
you called it.
magnificent heroic rolling, I have to say, Roll20. Thank you.
Yeah.
You totally called that. You said the professor would be the first to go, and here we are.
We did. I was going to be disappointed if it wasn't me after the way I was rolling tonight.
Oh my.
Well, the good news is that we have spare people around the mansion.
Yep. Yeah, I could pick up somebody else.
So, just to run some and Drake has apparently just turned on the channel up where he is, and he's going, "Oh my God, what happened to the professor?" You have to watch the rerun, Drake. But it was good.
99, 99, 99, 99.
97, 99, 98, 99.
As we our sanities return somewhat, and we pan away from this winter scene, I want to thank first of all my players, but also all of you who are out there watching this, whether it's live tonight on Twitch or whether it's on any of the recordings or on the YouTubes. We really hope you've enjoyed tonight, and that we'll see you again on Friday Frights here on Penny for a Tale. Coming up, there is quite the program here on Penny for a Tale. Sunday night, we have the first in the newest arc of the Age of Ashes campaign, Pathfinder 2e, which has been running for quite a while, and it's just an absolute joy to behold. Tuesday night, there is the Hearts of Shadow D&D 5th edition. Thursday night is the 5th edition Odyssey of the Dragon Lords. And most importantly, keep an eye out on all the channel socials and all the creators here, as the Kickstarter for Necrobiotic is but a few weeks away from launching, currently estimated on about May 12th. That's all the channel news that I have. So why don't we go around and do our outros, say where we can find you, all that stuff. I'm Staffan, known as RQ Staffan on the interwebs, and you can find me here just about any Friday night, frightening or not. Matt, how about you? How you doing, mate?
Hey, good. I can't wait to see where this goes with the Legionnaires and the thing with the horn. It sounds super spooky. I'm excited about that. Probably won't end up good, but yeah, it'll be fun. But yeah, I like to play RPGs and run them and stuff. So yeah, check out the virtual D&D weekends playing one of my games. So that's all I really got.
Oh, wonderful. And thank you so much for the raid, Cubinet. Just in time to see us wrap up, having not quite generated the TPK, but we're doing our best. It's only episode 2 of 3. Jay, where can we find you and how are you doing?
Hello, everyone. I'm doing excellent. Thank you so much for this invite. This was a blast. I'm very happy to play in this game. I'm known as Neophyte3 on the socials. You can find me Twitter, Twitch, there. I also, on Wednesday nights, I am on Scryer Vision Twitch channel, where we play a 5e, the dungeon, the greatest dungeon, the world's greatest dungeon, excuse me, on there. Also, once a month on Sunday nights, you can find me GMing a Star Wars one-shot series called Shadowport Adventurers on the Big Bearded Nerd 21 Twitch channel. And then upcoming Jasper's Game Week. So,
Oh yeah,
indeed, that's going to be great. Shae, how's Sarah doing, and where can we find you?
Hello, everyone. Sarah is still currently sane. May not last much longer. I have lost some sanity. Um, I I I guess. Ooh, I don't know how I'm gonna do in that intelligence roll. Um, I guess she's right now just in survival mode. I guess we'll see where it goes. I'm excited. This has been fun. This is my first ever Call of Cthulhu game, so it's been exciting. I myself can be found on my own channel, which is twitch.tv/Shaegem, SHAEGEM, in which I stream art. I have to reorganize my schedule though because I am starting a new job. So new, probably going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I also post some of that on my Twitter, which is Twitter handle is @GemShae. Twitter's dyslexic for whatever reason. Otherwise, you can find me either here or oftentimes on Party Wave Games channel.
Wonderful. And of course, the star of the final scenes, the who knows what will happen, Professor Alexander MacKenzie. Rindis, how are you doing? Where can we find you and all that?
Apparently the madness carried over to me too, because all I'm doing is giggling. Doing great. I'm Rindis of Party Wipe Games. You can find me there on Twitch and Twitter @PartyWipeGames. We run games most days of the week, with a few games planned to be added on, some games on hiatus currently, and others that will be wrapping up soon. Tuesdays we play Vampire the Masquerade. On Fridays, this is what we're doing, and then we are going to be over on Diesel Shot soon to guest star for their Change Stars before their Kickstarter kicks off. So we're real excited because they're good friends of ours. So shout out to their Kickstarter coming up soon. We also play Descent into Avernus on Saturdays. Sundays, we are wrapping up the Things from the Flood game this week, and we will be starting a Savage Worlds game. I am also going to be joining a Forged in the Dark game on Thursdays, so look forward to that. And I don't think there's anything else. Great American Witch is going to be wrapping up in 2 or 3 episodes, and Trudbang is still recording, and eventually Mitch will release those videos. They're slowly being put together by the production team, so look forward to that as well. And I think that's everything. There's too much on my plate.
So much goodness. Well, with that, I think we will sign off for tonight. And just remember, if you're not insane out there, you're not trying hard enough. Good night.